Welcome to Firebase. I'm your host, Gary French. Tonight's show is going to be a little bit different from some of the other shows that we've had. Tonight, I'm welcoming a man that I've recently met about a month or not even quite 2 months ago. But I've quickly discovered that he's a powerful man. He's a man that is strong in what it means to be an American. He's very proud to be an American. He is a Army veteran, HUA, having served in the U.S. Army myself. And he is a man that tells about a journey from being a liberal victim to becoming a Christian conservative. And the journey is a fascinating journey. And it's one of those things that helps you to understand how the light comes on for a person that sees the value of being a Christian, but also sees the necessity of being a conservative. My guest tonight is a man by the name of Dexter Pitts. Dexter Pitts is a medically retired U.S. Army veteran. He's a former Border Patrol agent, and he's a current police officer with the Louisville Metropolitan Police Department. He sees himself, and here's how he describes himself, as a one-time professional victim and political chameleon. And here's what he says about himself, who found true freedom in Jesus Christ and conservatism. As I said, about a month ago, I met Dexter and another man. The three of us gathered in my office. The other man is a federal agent, and the three of us talked for about 2 hours. And I told them afterwards, I wished we had had a 3-camera setup to film everything we were talking about, because the information they shared of what it means to be a professional police officer was insightful. They also gave me a tremendous amount of information about some of the pitfalls and some of the pushback that they're getting from politicians and from some wayward citizens themselves. Dexter, welcome to Firebase. So
Thanks,
glad
Pastor.
you're with me tonight.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
You know, you talk about being a political chameleon. Well, tell me, what in the world does that mean?
You know, growing up is we never really talked politics in my house, and so for me it was more so I didn't really know much about politics. I would just kind of blend in with what everybody in the room was saying. So I kind of, if I was around a certain group of people, they were talking, "Oh yeah, I agree, yeah," and I didn't know what I was agreeing with. You know, I just kind of went with the flow, and I lived that life pretty much until I was probably in my late 20s. You know, and I felt like a sellout. You know, I was trying to impress everybody else, and I was never true to myself.
What was the disadvantage of just sort of being that chameleon, you know, and not being true to yourself? What kind of a path did that lead you down? You talk about being a victim. Is that part of the way that it led you in that direction?
A lot of people don't know is how I really came into being the whole victim role was I did a movie with Spike Lee in 2007 called Miracle at St. Anna. And I'm black, but my family's from Mississippi. We're country, very country people, you know, Christian people. And it was the first time I was around real strong black people, and being around these guys, and I took everything that they were, their struggles, and I took them on as myself. And see, I didn't have an identity.
Yeah. Now, when you say strong black people, what are you talking about? Their political strength?
Political strength. I mean, educational, and just Spike Lee and those guys, man, they're very smart and very intelligent. And I had never been around such a group so strong like that. You know, and like I said, I grew up in the military, so diversity was always just normal for me. I'd never been around, except my family. I've never been around all black people.
I have some relatives, some family members that are black, and my wife and I say, honestly, and you know what, people will say, "Oh no, you're just some white guy, and you're just saying this." We do not see the color of the individual. We just see the person that's there, and to me, it's always sort of a put off when people wants to throw their color around, like oh, I'm disadvantaged, or I'm advantaged, or whatever. Why can't we just see people as people?
You know, and that's what I don't get, is because we went through the civil rights movement, and one of the things that Martin Luther King Jr. said during the speech was he wants his children to be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. For some odd reason in America right now, we're traveling backwards and flipping everything to where we're judging people simply by the color of their skin.
You know, and I think that's a great point you bring up. One of the reasons, from my observation, is that we're going backwards, is that we keep forgetting history. We keep tearing down the monuments to the past. And I look at my family being very disadvantaged growing up, and I grew up in Mississippi too.
There you go.
And
See?
I was a poor white guy, white kid. I didn't know we were poor. There's folks not far from us that had a dirt floor, and we just had a floor. We didn't think less of them at all. But the idea that you're disadvantaged because of your skin color is really very foreign to me. Do you find that a lot of people are just playing that for political motivation today?
Well, I feel like it's a lot of the politicians are. A lot of the politicians are using it, and they're speaking to a base of people that I feel that are uneducated and kind of were like me back in the day, back then, where I didn't really have my own voice or my own identity. So if you don't know who you are, somebody can come along, polished, well-spoken, and they can look at you and tell you, hey, this is who you are. This is what you're going to be. And you're going to listen to them. That's powerful.
Dexter, it's almost like that if you're looking for someone to admire, and even if it's a crazy person, if they're articulate and they seem like they're well-dressed and they've got, some bling or they've got some stuff, you're going to say,
yeah, it stands out.
Oh, I want to be with that kind of person. Do you find a lot of the younger people are just sort of, I have a friend of mine talks about his son. Oh, he chases the shiny object. Do you find some people are distracted by the shiny object?
We are attracted to charisma. We're attracted to strong and powerful people. It's the same thing with these young black guys growing up in the hood in the West End. If they don't have a father, strong male role models, what do they see? They see the drug dealer rolling around with the nice car. He's got the nice girl on his arm. Right. He's got the jewelry, the nice rims, the nice system, and he's got money. And is he going to look at the police officer that's working an honest job, working 9 to 5, paying his bills, or is he going to look, who's going to stand out more?
Yeah, people are wanting easy money, don't they?
Everybody wants easy money, but easy money, as easy as it comes, it goes just as easy.
That I heard it said that there is a price to pay for easy money, and some people aren't willing to pay the price.
I'm definitely not. They can keep their easy.
I recently had the great honor to interview Autry Pruitt, just a very strong conservative black man, and then also after that, Star Parker.
Love Star.
Star is awesome,
phenomenal,
and both of these people spoke that the journey for them from democratic, and that's what they call it, democratic victimization, to a life that gave them joy and peace and purpose in their life was twofold. One was recognizing that what they had been taught was not really so much about truth as it was about taking advantage of people and keeping them locked down. And they said the second thing is when they decided that their faith in Jesus Christ coupled with conservative values set them free. Why does it seem that so many people resist that and think that if I'm going to accomplish anything, somebody has to give it to me?
And I think that's because when you go that path by yourself, it's all on you. And there's nobody to fall back on, nobody to blame.
Right.
And if you've been told your entire life that you're a victim, you're not going to look in the mirror and point the finger at yourself. You don't see that.
Yeah.
It's everybody else's fault. And that was my problem. For so many years, I always thought, it was everybody else's fault. It was never my fault. And the biggest thing for me was I grew up going to church and I was taught about Jesus Christ and Christianity. But I never knew the whole having a relationship with Jesus Christ versus actually knowing him.
That's powerful.
And, so for me growing up, God was the big angry man in the sky. He was a tyrant to me growing up. I was terrified. But once I actually reached my lowest level, that was when I really reached out, dug into the Bible, and really started learning who Jesus Christ was. And it was like, this is a great guy. I never
thought about this, but when you were a kid, did you see him as an angry white guy?
I did.
Yeah.
Because that's just always the perception. I mean, wasn't really taught anything about color. So it's just what I saw on TV or just at church was always my perception of Jesus Christ.
Right.
I didn't know any better.
How did that wrong view of faith, coupled with meeting Spike Lee as an example, lead to you really embracing sort of a liberal view? And then what was the the light switch that came on for, wait a minute, that's not the path for me to follow?
I think it was the fact that my parents had laid a foundation, but it was the foundation they had laid that I didn't really have any input in, I guess, or say. It was just, this is what it's supposed to be. And I didn't have an identity. So when I met these guys, I felt instantly pulled, and I felt like, this is who I am. This is who I'm supposed to be.
Is that because you were searching?
I was searching. I had just got out of the military, and everybody knows when you get out of the military, you're looking for a tribe, the hierarchy of needs. And they were the first people I came across and took me in and made me feel like family. And I was like, this is who I'm supposed to be, like, power to the people, proud to be Black and all this. And I was never raised to be like that.
Yeah. Well, you bring to my remembrance, the scripture says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he'll not depart from it. So you're saying that your parents at least laid a solid foundation for you. It seems to me, and you may know this as a police officer, and we can talk about this after the break, that a lot of kids that you encounter today as a police officer, they don't have that family foundation of the same kind of values that they have.
No, not in America today. I believe the latest statistic I heard was 80% of Black children are born in a single-parent home. Wow. But that's not even just Black families. I mean, that's just America today, our society and culture.
We'll finish this conversation right after this break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Firebase. We're talking this evening with police officer from the Louisville Metropolitan Police Department, Dexter Pitts. He's been telling us about his journey from being a victim to that of being, he didn't use these words, but what he's describing is a conqueror. He's moved from being a victim in his life to that of a victor. And it's a fascinating story for us. And what's incredible for me is that he has been very intentional in this journey. Before the break, he was talking about the foundation that his parents laid in his life and played for him. One of the things that I asked him was about, does he see an absence of that same kind of foundation in some of the youth that he encounters as a police officer in Louisville? Dexter, we were talking about the transition from, a democratic victimization to that of being a conqueror in Christ, to having freedom in Jesus Christ, and the role of conservatism. What do you see among a lot of the youth, and you can define youth as teens or 20s or whatever you want to, what do you see in the youth that you encounter on a regular basis that are talking about searching for purpose?
Honestly, what I see with a lot of the youth is the pull of our culture is so strong. I mean, with social media, everywhere these kids turn, they have, the not so good part of our culture of this country just pulling them into it, man. You got the music, you got the movies, you got the news. Social media is a cesspool.
It is.
I tell my buddies, like, man, even as a police officer and as a Christian, that sometimes I have to log off because your mind gets taken so easily. Yeah. And these kids are attached to their phones. We all are, 24/7.
Right.
And that becomes their norm. And they become detached from reality, I think. And they want to live. They're looking at people living their lives on social media. I'm like, none of this stuff is real, but to them it is.
Do you think that is part because they're just trying to look for purpose, or they're trying to find meaning, and they find it on their phone or on their laptop or from the pals that they hang out with down at the corner?
And like I said, the pals they hang out with on the corner, because it's the same even on the police department or in the military. Nobody wants to look weak. Everybody wants to be cool. Everybody wants to be the alpha male. Everybody wants to be dominant.
Right.
And so, and social media is a place where I feel like it helps people create these personalities that they are, but they're really not.
Right.
And so our culture's become very toxic because of it.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. I think that's absolutely true. There's an article that I read recently that says a woke minority has seized America, and the emphasis or the focus of the article is saying that this woke minority seems to be the ones that are clamoring to push an anti-family agenda and an anti-Christian agenda. Have you seen that, especially as a police officer and the people that you're encountering, that the weakening of the family or the rejection of Christian values?
Oh, definitely. Especially, and it's weird because, Black people, coming from slavery, Christianity was always such a big part of us. But I meet now a lot of young kids in the hood that don't go to church, never been to church. They don't have anything to do with religion whatsoever.
Right.
And so I feel like,
Why do you think that is, that there's so many people that you encounter? Because that's just not for black people. It's for
no, it's for
all.
everybody.
Yeah, and I'm very careful. I don't like to say black race or white race. There's one race. There's one race. It's the human race. And because if I'm ill and I need a blood transfusion and you match me, I have no objection. Yeah,
it works.
Why do you think there's such a resistance to the Christian faith? And because I see that with kids everywhere, they don't care about going to church.
I feel like it's our carnal minds. Like, people don't like being told what to do. We want to be free. And I tell people all the time, I am a Christian, but I'm a fallen man. And I have to pray, and I need Jesus Christ in my life because the pull to do wrong is so strong.
Right.
And people want to give in to their natural urges and needs. Yeah. And when you give into that, what happens? Yeah. You get taken to a life of crime. You get into drugs, alcohol and all these other addictions and these things and the pull of these things are strong. And once these things get a grasp on you, like the streets, it's got a hold of you and it's hard to let go. And I see it every day.
Dexter, you made a comment about people don't want to be told what to do. But that's almost a contradictory statement. And here's what I mean by that is because they don't want to be told to go to church or to accept Christ or to live a good, decent life, but they're being controlled by the left. They're being told that, you've got your own freedom, but they're controlling them. And I think that's the real danger, is that the people that say that they don't want to be controlled, they're letting the woke minority control them.
They are. And I tell people the woke mob is real. And the thing that gets me is it has infiltrated every part of our culture and society. It's even got to the military. We had General Mark Miley, who I actually served under in Iraq. He's going that route. Yeah. I think I heard Ben Shapiro say on one of his podcasts that General Miley says that he's not woke, but as Ben Shapiro said, he's using woke language.
I see that woke culture spreading like a cancer across the city of Louisville. And I see it especially in the police department. And by that, I don't mean necessarily the police officers themselves, but I mean by the politicians that are trying to control the police department. And the city of Louisville has been dominated by the Democrat Party for over 52 years. And folks, it doesn't get any better. It's getting worse because what's happening in the city of Louisville right now, they've got 2 recruiting classes with only 31 potential new recruits coming to the department and a shortage of over 240 police officers. They're not being told that they can police anymore. You guys are having to become social workers or they're going to replace police officers with social workers. It's crazy, Dexter, what's going on, and it's all by politics.
It's all politics. And I'll say this before I start talking about the police department. I'm a private citizen in my spare time. I'm speaking for myself. I don't speak for the department. I don't speak for anybody at the department. This is just me as a free citizen speaking as somebody that works there. But it's, at roll call today, I saw there's an officer. He came back. He's a rehire. He came back. And he told me he's leaving again. I was like, why? And he says that he just feels like there's no place for an old dinosaur like him in this new department. Yeah. And it's sad because this guy is a phenomenal officer, a lot of years of experience, a good guy. We need more officers like him, but he doesn't feel like he's necessarily needed or wanted around anymore. And I hate that because I have the same feeling for myself.
Yeah, the question wasn't asked to try to get you in trouble with anybody. I wouldn't do that at all. But you see, here's my observation. We've got a mayor in Louisville that hired a failed police chief from Atlanta to come to the department. And friends, I don't care how you look at it, you don't bring a failure in to try to help a department. And I may be wrong, and I hope that I am wrong, but I think that's affected the morale within the department. That aside, what was the switch for you that said, you know what, I'm tired of this victimization attitude, and I want to become a convert to something that will give me real joy and peace?
For me, it really came after my mother's suicide. My mother, she was a country girl from Mississippi. Her and my dad married 28 years. And I remember when I was a young rookie, I was working at the Iron Man detail on August 29th, 2010. And I got a call that my mother was shot and she was at the hospital. I thought it was a joke. So I get to the hospital and later find out that my mother shot and killed herself after 28 years of marriage with my father and suffering abuse. And so for me, I was in a different marriage at the time. And because I had no identity, I put everything I had and who I was into that marriage and into my wife. And see, God was here, but my wife at the time was up here. And because of that, I had nothing. And when our marriage came to an end, I was left with nothing. Everything I worked for was gone. And I remember just sitting on my apartment on the floor crying like, why is this happening to me? I'd stopped believing.
You had the wrong priorities.
Yeah, I had the wrong priorities. And I just remember sitting on the floor crying like, God, why me? Why is all this happening to me? And I don't know what it was, but my buddy told me to read the verse, John 1:1. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face many trials and tribulations, because the trials that you go through make you better. Yeah. And so for me,
you got about 10 seconds here.
Okay, so for me, after that, that's when I realized I learned who Jesus Christ was at that moment, and that's when the switch for me.
What an eye opener! Wow, my brother, thanks so much for being here tonight. I love you, Dexter.
Man, I'm so appreciate you having me, sir.
We will be right back. Welcome back. Tonight we've been talking with Dexter Pitts, police officer from Louisville Metropolitan Police Department. We've spoken of race issues. We've spoken of being a victim and the journey to that of being liberated in Christ. We've talked about police matters, and we've even spoken about so many more things. Dexter has shared his story of how he transitioned from a military officer to the police department, to the border patrol, back to the police department. He's sharing about his family and shared about the loss of his mother and a divorce that he went through. And the thing that I've heard from him is that he discovered what it meant to be not just an American, but a Christian. My friends, in our country today, we're told that a person's color is what dictates whether or not they are necessary, instead of a character, instead of their character. The late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said that he longed for the day when his children would be judged by the content of their character instead of the color of their skin. And sadly, today it seems like in our nation, people are more concerned with the color of their skin. And it seems like the Marxist group Black Lives Matter beats that drum real loud, and Antifa and leftist politicians, they want to show the differences between us instead of the similarities. Why can't we just be Americans and not a hyphenated American? Why can't we just be brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ? Well, Dexter was sharing the journey of his life and the things that were going on, and we had a different ending planned for this evening, and I want to give him these last few minutes to share a little bit about his story and wrap it all up for us. Dexter, would you please just look into the camera and tell the folks of how the change came about in your life?
When I was at my lowest was the point where I realized that God showed me that everything in my life up to this moment was because of the decisions I had made. And so for me, I had to look in the mirror and look at myself and realize that I was where I was because of the choices I made and the life I had chosen to live. God had never left me. I just left him. And in my darkest and deepest moment of despair, I was able to find Christ again on my apartment floor when I had nobody, but yet and still, God still loved me. And once I reestablished my relationship with Jesus Christ, I discovered my own identity. Aside from politics, aside from the color of my skin, I realized that I was a child of God. And that meant that I was free. I did not have to be held and tied down to my past. I was stronger than the color of my skin because racism and slavery happened in this country. And I realized that didn't happen to me. There's literally nobody that has ever told me, Dexter, you're black, you can't do that. Everything I've ever wanted to do in my life, because of the blessings of God and how my parents raised me, I've been able to do. After 9/11, I told my mom I wanted to become a soldier. You know what I did? I became a soldier. After I became a soldier, I said, you know what? I want to do a little acting. Guess what? I did a little acting. I decided I wanted to get a bachelor's degree. I went to school and got a bachelor's degree. I said, hey, I want to become a police officer. I became a police officer. Nobody stopped me. And even better, when I was on the PD, I decided I wanted to become a U.S. Marshal and be on the task force. I became a U.S. Marshal on the task force. People told me, you're the first Black U.S. Marshal on the task force. I did not care. It was never my intent to be the first Black anything. That was just something I wanted for myself. And I realized that with God in my life, I could literally do anything.
What a tremendous story. Thanks so much for being with us tonight, my brother. It's truly is an honor for you to be here. And we're going to ask that the folks be sure to remember him in prayer. And I'm going to ask you that if Christian television is important to you, that you would take the time to support this television program and this television station. People think that we can just put programs on the air. It's costly to put television programs on the air. And we want it to be a good quality program, one that hits the news topics of the day, but also to bring some good, heartwarming stories. And we think that this story tonight has been heartwarming for you. We want you to know this scripture that is said in Judges, since there is no king in the land, everyone did what was right in their eyes. Make sure that Jesus is your king and follow what he wants you to do. Until next week, we look forward to seeing you again.